In the heart of 19th-century Charleston, where magnolia blossom scented the air and horse-drawn carriages echoed down cobblestone streets, lived a woman whose name history forgot. Her name was Evelyn, though most people knew her only as the seamstress. Evelyn was born into slavery in the Grand Wentworth household, a family of wealth and status. From an early age, her gift with a needle set her apart. She could turn simple cloth into gowns that shimmered like moonlight. The city's richest women wore her creations, parading through Charleston's grand halls, never realizing that the hands that stitched their beauty also stitched something far greater, for behind every elegant hem and delicate thread, Evelyn hid secrets, messages of hope, courage, and escape. By day, she was the silent artist of silk and lace. But by night, beneath the dim glow of her oil lamp, she became a messenger for freedom. Beneath a loose floorboard in her small quarters, she kept scraps of paper wrapped in cloth, coded notes, names, and directions for those fleeing bondage through the Underground Railroad. Her genius lay not only in her sewing but in her secrecy. The patterns she embroidered were maps disguised as art. A swirl of roses meant to wait for a signal. Crossed stitches marked the presence of a river. And a tiny feather, hidden within a sleeve or collar, meant freedom was near. Evelyn's hands moved steadily. But her heart never rested. Each gown she made carried the risk of discovery. Yet she continued, night after night, threading courage into fabric that would one day lead others to freedom. One evening, while sewing a gown for the young Miss Clara Wentworth, Evelyn overheard voices drifting from the parlor. Miss Clara's fiancé, Thomas Harrow, had arrived, a polished young man from Savannah, admired by Charleston society. His charm, however, masked a dangerous curiosity. Evelyn listened quietly as he spoke to Mr. Wentworth. "The escape network is growing bolder," Thomas said in a low voice. "2 more have vanished this week. They're using merchant ships at the harbor. I intend to find who's behind it." Evelyn's blood ran cold. That was the same route she had secretly passed along in a coated hem just days ago. If Thomas uncovered her involvement, the punishment would be certain and merciless. That night, she did not sleep. Her lamp flickered beside her as she stared at her needle, wondering if it would be the tool that saved lives, or ended hers. But by morning, her resolve was clear. She would not stop. Days later came the Grand Wentworth Ball, an evening of silk, laughter, and the sharp scent of wine. The mansion glittered with candlelight. Evelyn stood in the corner of the ballroom, watching the women twirl in the very gowns she had made, each one carrying a hidden story stitched into its seams. But as she worked quietly, she noticed Thomas Harrow across the room. He wasn't dancing. He was watching her. Their eyes met for the briefest moment, and something in his expression told her, he knew. Later that night, as she gathered her sewing tools, Thomas approached her in the hallway. His voice was calm, almost kind. "Miss Evelyn," he said, pulling a folded handkerchief from his coat pocket. "Your work is extraordinary. So extraordinary that I noticed something rather peculiar." He unfolded the cloth. In the corner of the fabric was a small pattern, roses and tiny lines, one of Evelyn's coded symbols. "What does this mean?" he asked, his tone deceptively polite. Evelyn's heart pounded, but she met his gaze steadily. Then, with quiet strength, she replied, "It means beauty can hide what the eye refuses to see." Before he could react, Evelyn dropped her sewing needle to the floor. As Thomas instinctively bent to pick it up, she turned and ran. The sound of chaos filled the mansion, voices shouting, footsteps echoing through the halls. Evelyn raced down the servants' corridor, through the kitchen, and out into the night. The moon lit her path as she fled toward the stables, where her friend Samuel, the stable hand, waited. For months, the two had planned to escape Charleston together. Now, their moment had come sooner than expected. Samuel had hidden a small rowboat by the riverbank. Evelyn reached it just as shouts rang out behind her. Thomas's voice carried through the dark, "Stop her. She's one of them." But by the time his men reached the shore, the boat was gone, drifting quietly into the black water of the Ashley River. Evelyn and Samuel rowed through the night, guided by the faint stars and the pull of freedom. when dawn broke, they reached the marshlands beyond Charleston, wild, silent, and free of pursuit. There, waiting in the mist, was a woman holding a lantern marked with a single embroidered feather. Evelyn recognized it instantly, her own symbol. The woman smiled and whispered, "Welcome, sister. Your stitches have carried many to safety." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in her life, her hands were no longer bound to serve others. They were her own, free to stitch not for survival, but for life. Years later, long after Charleston had changed and the city's mansions had begun to crumble, an old dress was found in an attic. The fabric was faded, the lace yellowed with age. But along its hem ran a strange design, tiny roses and lines forming what appeared to be a map. Historians studying it realized what it was: a code, a secret route hidden in plain sight. Though her name was lost to time, her legacy endured. Evelyn, the seamstress of Charleston, had sewn freedom into the fabric of history, and though no monument bears her face, her courage lived on quietly, thread by thread. Through dust and time.